with us. He is a very senior person in, I would say, authority in labor laws in this part of the country, and he has come out with, domestic inquiry book also. Now he is also preparing, consolidating all Supreme Court judgments relating to labor laws. Mr. Ravindran has been helping us during this lockdown period also in advising us in the payment of wages, PF, ESI, etc. And SIAMA has got a very long association with Mr. Ravindran. We are on behalf of all the participants and as well as SIAMA, I extend a very warm welcome to Mr. Ravindran. And I hope this seminar will definitely enrich all the participants to update in the labor code, which is going to come very shortly. And apart from that, one thing what we'll have to remember is, one side we are facing acute shortage of labor, high attrition, high absenteeism. On the other hand, the brands and NGOs, they very often come out with a lot of criticism, especially the employment of labor in Tamil Nadu. In fact, 14th, there is a video conferencing. Again, all brands are coming up. And recently, there were some reports on this child labor employment and all. So that is one side. Now, future, the major challenge will be, the compliance. So when I say compliance, whatever labor laws there or there in any particular country, we'll have to comply with that. Apart from ILO conventions, whatever they are prescribing, and we will be facing a lot of challenges. So my sincere request to all HR professionals and others who are participating in this seminar, kindly listen to Mr. Ravindran, Department of SIAMA, for any clarification. Now we need to prepare ourselves, and today's deliberation will be very, very useful to all of us. So with this brief introduction, once again, I welcome all the participants who are participating in this virtual conference seminar, and also the speaker for this. And I hand over to Mr. Ragurajan to commence the seminar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ragurajan, you can take over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot. As he rightly said, our association with Ravindran is long back. When Ravindran was in the T.S. Gopalan office, we associated with him, and because of his wide knowledge, we thought that he will be the right person to share his knowledge and experience. Especially initially, he had some hesitation, particularly that the enactment is not yet come up, and it is likely to be passed. Once it is passed and become an act, he thought of deliberating this session. But we said that for the long, I think though this is the period, it's a long period that we have to do all these exercises. We requested him, let us start right now. Mostly the changes may be here and there, maybe there, but in spite of that, we would like to hear his views. And most important is that there are certain radical changes with regard to the benefits extended to them and the definition of employee and all other aspects of what I am able to see that. I think this is the right time. I will let us start exploring them. Like in the case of GST, when the GST has come in the place of CST and VAT, some radical changes have taken place in the tax system. Likewise, now though there is a small changes, but it has a ramification. I think we are able to see a lot of hidden notification which has been mentioned in the enactment. All these things Mr. Ravindran will throw open to the members. And I think probably such a kind of seminar will be a continuous one to update further knowledge whenever the practical difficulties that the people are experiencing. With this, over to Mr. Ravindran.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Am I? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Selvaraj. Thank you, Mr. Ragurajan, for your generous praise on me. Thank you so much. As Mr. Selvaraj said, it's time to reappraise ourselves on the present labor law scenario. And as Mr. Ragurajan said, I was hesitant to talk about this subject for quite some time. In fact, last 6 or 7 months, I've been asked to make a submission on this core courts. But I always had a feeling whether it will come through because earlier attempts have failed. Therefore, I said, let the child be born, let the child come out to the world, then let's deal with it. But now looks it's time enough to do that because the wage code has already been introduced. It's only been to be notified. And very soon in the coming session of Parliament, the 3 other codes will be introduced and it will become a law very soon. I request the administrator to mute all the participants. If they don't do it, let's do it because it's here and there some noises are coming out. Let's mute all of them from your end so that there will be a seamless discussion on that. A brief introduction to the subject before I dwell into the matter straight away. See, labor laws are about nearly 95 years old. If you take Trade Union Act 1926 as the first codified law.
Hello.
Subsequently, 1947 Industrial Disputes Act and many other acts have come as far as the central government is concerned. But apart from the year 1982, there has not been much of change in the provisions of the Act, which was Act 46 of 82. Amendments were brought in the ID Act with regard to industry, though it is not notified, then various other aspects. But overall was long overdue, in fact. Why should a law be static for 9 decades or 7 decades without any progress? When the scenario has completely changed, at least from mid-90s, when the economy opened up, the way of doing business has completely changed. But how could the labor law remain the same? Should it not change with times? But this responsibility was taken up by the courts, by various judgments, which kept pace with the trend of the situation, but legislation did not take place. Therefore, now it's time enough to do that, and I'm happy that the present central government is proceeding with it. If not there been a COVID, probably we will be having all the books with us, which is duly notified. Probably next Parliament session, this will take place. Therefore, the long overdue of, I won't say reform, rescheduling and correcting the labor laws is necessary. Our country rates very poor in scale in the ease of doing business. Apart from other constraints, it is also said the archaic labor laws are one of the reasons. The investor or the Indian employer wants to know what is the law on the subject. Should he depend only on the judgments which keep changing from time to time, or he should depend on the codified law? So codified law should take over the legal precedent is the ideal thing. Therefore, this codification has taken place. It's good. Now, from a lawyer's point of view, I'll present it to you, not from the point of view of a HR perspective or IR perspective or a trainer perspective. I want to tell you next 60 minutes, what is the law under the present 4 codes? I'll take up the IR code first, because IR code is the most important code as it deals with Industrial Disputes Act, Trade Union Act and Standing Orders Act. Then I'll go on. So 50% of the time schedule of 60 minutes, I'll take for IR code. 3 other codes I'll deal with little fast. And I'll be showing you slides, which are nearly about 90 and odd. But don't worry, I'll move through it very quickly. At the end, I'll highlight what is that codification says. With that, I conclude. Now, I request the administrator once this introduction is over, I'll start the subject. You put the slide in the middle, and I'll go to some corner. Yes, thank you so much. The Industrial Relations Code 2019 is the first one. The slide may come up, please. The provisions altered. Take slide 1, please.
இதுலயே போட போறியா இது வால்யூம் குறைய இது வால்யூம் கூட இது வால்யூம் மியூட் பண்றது
Number 1, please.
இது நல்லது இது லாஜிக் இதே மாதிரி இது டெல் எது நல்லா இருக்கும் ரெண்டு நல்லா
Yes. I'll take up the industry one first, because unless we know what is an industry, there is no point in dealing with the IR code. The present definition gives a feeling that industry means a situation where there should be manufacturing activity, or there should be a service rendered by way of calling, employment, industrial occupation, avocation, etc. Now, as you all know, in 1978, Krishna Iyer passed a landmark judgment called the Bangalore Water Supply Board, in which he said the triple test is enough to conclude it is an industry or not. The definition in 2J is not the correct way of to interpret in a static manner. And therefore, he simply said, where there is a systematic activity and there is a cooperation between the employer and the worker, which results in supply of goods or distribution of service to human wants and wishes in general, it will amount to an industry. Therefore, he formulated a simple spiritual test, triple test, which ended the matter in 1978 till today. So, therefore, in the judgment, he overruled many Supreme Court judgments and held education is an industry, club is an industry, then social service organizations or industries, spiritual organizations or industries, and philanthropic organizations or industries, etc., etc., provided the 3 tests is fulfilled. Now, the present amendment takes some part of it in its fold and rejects some part of it. Therefore, the triple test is accepted, irrespective of the position, whether there is an investment or not, whether there is any motive to make a profit or not. But the exception is also carved out. That is 50% of Bangalore water supply is accepted. Some portion of it is not accepted. Next slide, please. What is not accepted is in the next slide. However, the definition excludes charitable organization, social philanthropic services, domestic services, the next very important, what is notified by the government. Therefore, per se, charitable, social, philanthropic and domestic services are excluded, and the government may add, if necessary, certain services to be excluded. Therefore, the industry part of is now taken care of, excluding these 3 kind of ones. Now, if you decided what is an industry, now let us see what is an industrial dispute, which is the next important thing. Slide 2, please. Yes, we all know the present industrial dispute definition consists of 2 sections, 2K and 2A, what is known as collective dispute and individual dispute. Collective dispute is a larger dispute which deals with service relations of workmen. Individual dispute deals with the non-employment of workmen. Now they have got rid of those 2 definitions and brought it simply includes an individual dispute and collective dispute. Therefore, all the disputes are now in the industrial disputes. It's a good change. Number 3. Next. Retrenchment. See, in the again another landmark judgment of Justice Krishna Iyer, in State Bank versus Sundaramani, he laid down the law that termination for any reason whatsoever would amount to retrenchment. Demolishing the earlier view, the retrenchment means only excess surplus labor being taken away from the service of the management. Therefore, earlier it was understood termination of surplus labor alone is retrenchment. Now he said any reason whatsoever. Now subsequently the two amendments took place where they excluded the continued ill health termination as not retrenchment, and importantly under 20BB they said any service which is terminated in terms of the clause provided in the appointment order or the appointment coming to an end on the contractual period is not retrenchment. Now here they added one more subject. Retrenchment will not amount to a termination if it is on the completion of tenure of fixed term employment. This is a very important point. Next, we will see what is fixed term employment. Therefore, if termination due to fixed term employment is not retrenchment, we should know what is fixed term employment. Yes, next one. I'll deal with it when it comes to that portion because it's a new, see, I have divided the IR code into two portions. Provisions which are amended or reconsidered or reoriented and provisions which are newly introduced. The fixed term employment provision will come when I deal with newly introduced sections. Now the next amendment or reconstruction is in respect of strike. Strike we all know is where it is a concerted action by a group of workmen acting on a common understanding. But now they introduce one more element to the definition of strike, which says that if 50% or more workmen go on a casual leave in a concerted manner, it will amount to strike. Now, therefore, what does it mean? That if 50% of the workmen, they need not give a strike notice to say it is strike. Even if they go on a casual leave in a concerted manner, it will amount to strike. This is a very crucial provision because, for example, a trade union on certain principles gives a strike notice on an all India basis, which is nothing to do with the particular industry. Instead of giving a strike notice and getting into a question whether it is a public duty or non-public duty, 14 days notice, they just take leave. And because they have a casual leave in their credit, they leave. And they also earn wages. But now that practice is curbed. This is the importance of this definition in the present code. Next 5. Wages. Wages is such a controversy. Right from 1963 till 2020 or 2019, we are grappling with it. What is wages? The simple definition says basic and DA to the exclusion of various allowances. But the authorities say, except what is excluded in the definition, everything is included. For example, in PF, we all know HRA is specifically excluded. Therefore, they said HRA alone is excluded, various allowances are included. They also use the expression subterfuge of wages. So they said instead of paying basic pay, you pay allowances, you will treat it as a basic pay. So it led to a lot of confusion and a lot of litigation. Litigation which is a costly litigation from employees' point of view when they lost it before the Supreme Court on the PF case. Now, fortunately, now we have a clarity on the definition of wages, which is followed in other 4 courts also. Basic DA and retaining allowance, which is normally only in seasonal industry, will be 50% of it. Various allowances will be excluded, provided it is also within 50%. So a pay packet of basic DA and retaining allowance up to 50% will pass the test. Other 50% allowances will not be taken as wages. But if you do that 40-60, then again the balance 10 will come into the 40. Therefore, even if you again play with this jugglery, bringing various allowances exclusion artificially or by deeming provision, this excess of one-off will be deemed to be a remuneration. Therefore, actually now we are clear. Let's have basic DA. If there is no retaining allowance, basic DA is 50%. Whatever name you call, all other allowances is not part of wages. It's a welcome clarity because different enactments delineate allowances. For example, in PF basic DA, HRA is not wages. In ESI, conveyance allowance is not wages. So it is all excluded differently. Now there is some clarity on this. Yes, next. So it's a welcome change. Register of trade unions. There is also a lot of confusion on register of trade unions. Now suitably it is said a trade union can be registered provided it is at all times it maintains 10% of the workers' strength or 100, whichever is less. Therefore, these letter pad unions cannot survive any longer by keeping a registration alive by submitting annual returns, but they must have the strength of the workman. This is the import of this new section. Yes, I mean amended section. Next 7. Now we'll come to standing orders. The standing orders will have an impact only when we come to the rules, which are yet to be notified. But the change here, they made it is in respect of suspension pending inquiry. Instead of 50, 75, 100, they made it as a 75 as a maximum. And if there is a delay on the conduct of the workman, whatsoever, it will be only remaining at 75%. Therefore, 50% the preceding the date of suspension, 75% for the remaining period will be the scope of it. Therefore, the scope of getting 100% of the wages as subsistence allowance is curbed by the present definition. Yes. Next, 8. As you know, in the third schedule, which is similar to 9A, this section 40, this some leverage in respect of shift working. We need not again follow this old 9A. In the present one, we need not give notice if the shift is due to change due to emergent situation, but it should be in accordance with the standing orders and also in consultation with the grievance redressal committee. Therefore, you can't do it unilaterally, but have a formal consultation with the grievance redressal committee. The shift change is a necessary elbow room for the employer in case of emergency, and that has been taken care of in the present rescheduling of the section. Yes. 9. Conciliation. See, this present reclassification of conciliation has got some legal import, because the earlier we are not clear the different judgments. When does the conciliation start? Is it on the day 1 when an inquiry notice is given, or only when a specific notice of conciliation proceedings is issued by the conciliation officer? With divergent views. Now it is made it very clear the conciliation is deemed to have commenced on the very first meeting itself. Now, coming to the conclusion of the conciliation, also there was some confusion, because the judgments said the conciliation does not end when the authority submits a failure report in his notes paper or the failure report is received by the management. But when the conciliation failure report reaches the government, the conciliation comes to an end. And we do not know when it reaches the government. They don't communicate to us saying this is when we have received the conciliation failure report. Why this starting and ending is relevant is, as you all know, compliance of section 33 in the earlier section, which is now 90, where you have to file an approval application or a permission application during the conciliation before the authorities. Similarly, when the conciliation is in progress or starts in a public service or in a non-public service, there are certain restrictions on strike. Therefore, the conciliation beginning and ending has an impact both for the employer and the employee, and it was a doubtful proposition all this time. Now it has been clarified. Therefore, now we should be careful when we file an approval application as to when the conciliation started, when the conciliation comes on. Similarly, when you lock out or when the workmen go on a strike, now there is some clarity when the conciliation proceedings are started and when it is ended. It's a good position. Next, 10. Strikes and lockout. A formidable, far-reaching change has been made. The strikes being legal, illegal, lockout being legal, illegal, and public service, non-public service has once again been once and for all has been get rid of. Now we have only one strike, one lockout only one. As what I said, strike will equally apply to lockout also. Let's therefore deal with strike alone. No person can go on a strike in breach of contract, which is not there earlier, without giving employer 60 days notice. Earlier it was 6 weeks, it is now 60 days. Now within 14 days, it remains the same. Then during the pendency of conciliation proceedings and 7 days after its conclusion, then during the pendency of proceedings before a tribunal and 60 days after its conclusion. So now there is complete clarity on the conciliation proceedings and when we should go on a strike and when we can declare lockout. These are important clarity on the subject. Next, 11. It is made clear now a strike or lockout is illegal if there is a contravention of the earlier provisions or section 40, class 47. 47 is equivalent to 10b of the present situation. Prohibition of strike or lockout by the government order while referring an industrial dispute. These are the situations where a strike or lockout will be illegal. Yes, 12. So these are next one. Next one. 13. 13. Yes. 12. As I said earlier, the term retrenchment excluded fixed term employment. Now let's see what is fixed term employment and whether there is a scope for exploitation that has been plugged now. Providing for engagement on a fixed period by ensuring hours of work, wages, allowances, and other benefits not less than that of a permanent workman doing the same or similar work. Also eligible for proportionate statutory benefits without applying for qualification period of employment required under statute. Therefore, we can have a fixed term employment for a fixed period and terminate the services, which is not retrenchment. But the wages and service condition should remain on par if they do the work of similar nature of a permanent workman. So this is an important new provision added to the present one. 13, trade union dispute. See, there is a dispute between a workman, a member and a trade union, or among the trade unions. Now there is no identification of this issue and the employers were without any, the unions are without any solution. Now either they have to go to civil court or resolve this issue. It was a very complex situation. Now that issue has been brought under the IR code itself. Any dispute relating to trade union among them or among the 2 unions or 3 unions will amount to a trade dispute. Let's see why it is so. Next, 14. There is a compulsion now to have a negotiating union or a negotiating council. If there is only one registered trade union of the workers, then it shall be recognized as a sole bargaining agent. Therefore, the days of no union in a company is gone. There is one union registered and it is in accordance with the law and it has got the membership from among the workmen, we shall recognize it. Next, 15. Then, let us see one by one. If there are more than one trade union, so union which is having 75% of the workers' support should be recognized. Next one. Next. No, the earlier one. Yes. If there are more than one trade unions and there is no 75% for any of those unions, it is not possible. If there is 75 or 80 plus 10, 10, it's okay. But let us assume it is 40, 20, 30, etc. Whichever union is having 10% and above will be recognized as a trade union. The 75% criteria will not be applicable in such a situation. Next. Yeah, the number, that caption number. Yes. Recognition granted to a union will be in force for a period of 3 years. There is no question of reducing it or changing it or withdrawing the recognition. It becomes compulsory. Next. Yeah, the number you put the top also. 15. A civil court will not have any jurisdiction in respect of trade union disputes. Next. 16. This is another important change, new one rather. They have formed a industrial tribunal in the place of labor courts, and they have put judicial member and administrative member. Therefore, the tribunals in the place of labor courts will be a two-member judicial forum henceforth after the court comes into force. Yes, next one. The decision of the tribunal should be consensus. And in the event of a split, then it will go to a third person who will be a judicial member. I'll comment on it a bit later in the end. Next, 18, yes, 18. This is another important new provision. The tribunal can grant interim relief to workers during the pendency of a dispute. So as you all know, during a larger dispute like bonus or charter demands, the courts had an interim relief power recognized by the Supreme Court way back in 1950 in New Imperial Hotel case. But non-employment workmen were not having such a relief. Now it has become mandatory that the tribunal, in the interest of justice, has got power to grant monetary relief to workmen during their pendency of non-employment. Therefore, for earlier thinking, let's dismiss him, let's him languishing in the court for 10 years, let him starve, then we will arrive at a settlement, days are all gone. Now you should have a lot of responsibility when you dismiss a workman. During the pendency of the litigation in the labor court stage itself, some monetary relief likely to be granted. This is apart from 17B before the High Court. Next, 19. Next. Some limitation has been now brought into the code. Earlier there was no limitation. Now it was brought as 3 years by a recent amendment. Now it is made clear. So the significant point is it should be within 3 years. Then the conciliation officer should send a report within 45 days, not keeping it for months together. Then after 45 days, the workman go to the tribunal for appropriate relief. So the concerned party can now go to relief. Therefore, in respect of non-employment, charter demands, or whatever it is, there is no reference by the government. Therefore, the union individual workman should go to conciliation, no doubt, within 3 years, wait for a compromise by 45 days border, and thereafter go to the court. So this is likely to increase the litigation before the courts. 20, next. 20, next. This is another new one, formation of a reskilling fund. When we terminate the individual workman, we should give 15 days wages to the fund, and which they will be supposed to use it to train the manpower who were retrenched. Let us see how far it really implemented in due course. Next one. 21. Civil court jurisdiction is once and for all boosted in labor matters, because there is always a doubt. No doubt in 1975, the Supreme Court held that what are the parameters for inclusion of exclusion of civil court in labor jurisdiction. Generally, it laid down the law which was followed subsequently also. In respect of labor legislation, the civil court will not have jurisdiction. But if there is a relief claimed in terms of a common law, civil court is available. Now it is made clear that none of the matters covered under this code will be taken up for litigation before a civil court. There is a good clarity on this. Next. Schedule go slow. Now, one of the unfair labor practice in respect of the workman was notified. Now they included go slow as not only a misconduct in terms of standing order, this is also an unfair labor practice, which makes it a serious one as far as the workman is concerned. Next. Now, these are the changes and new provisions. I'll quickly make my observations. Next, 23. Any proceedings becoming conciliation proceedings is likely to be harmful, either from workman point of view or from management's point of view. All type of frivolous cases can be filed by way of a dispute. And once it is lodged and it is taken up for conciliation, the conciliation machinery starts clicking. There will be a lot of restriction both on the employer and the employee. It is not good for industrial relations being smooth. It will lead to a lot of unnecessary tempting matters to be brought to the conciliation table, and which will restrict the rights of the parties. I'm not saying for workman or for management, but it will be an embargo. This is not a good thing. Next one. Definition of layoff. Next one, 24. See, this layoff provision is simply outdated. What is that in that provision which does not take place at all? For example, epidemic. In our lifetime, in this century, first time we have come across a situation of epidemic. Other provisions mentioned in the definition of layoff is very unlikely to take place. Now in 2020, can you say the layoff can be only due to the shortage of power or fire or catastrophic situation or epidemic? Otherwise, you cannot lay off. For business reason, can't you lay off? So high time this layoff definition is drastically changed, taking care of the dynamics of the today's business situation, which has been lost sight in the present code. I really wonder whether this code is drafted, whether workmen and management are consulted at all. Though they call for objections, we normally don't give any objections. But even the drafting stage, legislature should have the meaningful information from both sides. It looks it is not taking place. Next, 25. This permission to lay off, retrench and closure is a big burden actually. Why should there be a permission? Or the managements are not matured enough to take care of the workmen, or they are not responsible for the running of the business? Are we starting the business only to lay off, retrench and close the establishment? No. We need it in dire situations. Let us see, for example, let us spend a few minutes here on the layoff. During this disaster management situation, the question is pending before the Supreme Court whether the order of the central government that we should close the establishment and we should also pay wages to the workmen is valid or not. Is not taking away the power of layoff. That's a larger issue. Now, from 1805 onwards, the disaster management sections came to an end. So from 1805, the impact of epidemic still continues in various forms even today. If I have power to lay off due to epidemic, by the time I file the application, 60 days is over. So 60 days full wages have to be paid. Now we all know, it's no secret, the government does not give permission for any of these situations. Let me deal with the layoff account. Today, an export garment company files an application for layoff, citing the power given to him under the standing orders, namely epidemic. He says, because of epidemic, I lost my orders. Because of epidemic, I am not able to run the establishment. The authority passes an orders saying, if I give permission to you because of epidemic, I will be flooded with number of applications. If an epidemic is a large scale outbreak of disease and companies are unable to run the establishment, naturally many companies will come up for permission to lay off. Is it a ground to refuse layoff? Now section also says you can lay off or power to lay off in view of power shortage. Then can be refused by the government, many people will come. I am saying, why this necessity to take permission from the government, which was introduced in the year 1982. 1972, it was introduced, struck down by the Supreme Court. 82, it was introduced, upheld by the Supreme Court. But we are in 2020. 40 years have gone by. The business is not the same. the culture of the organization is not same. Now we want to employ, but if we want to get rid of excess labor, we should be given this elbow. Let me divide this controversy into two more points. I am ready to go before a court for permission. I am not ready to go before the government because of the experience which all we know. Let this power be given to the tribunal. Let the tribunal pass an order within 60 days to grant permission to lay off retrenchment and closure. Will the workman have any objection to this? Very unlikely. Second observation I want to make is, don't put an embargo as a permission. Make it as an approval, like various other provisions under section 33. Allow me to lay off. I'll file an approval for that. Let the government or tribunal go through it and grant approval or not. Third thing is, this provision should be deleted once and for all. There is no need for it. Now, the reference has become automatic now. So within 3 years, after 45 days, can go to court. The earlier restrictions of government not referring is also taken away. Therefore, the business has changed, the legal provisions have changed, but the law remains the same. Therefore, it is high time we have a complete rule look on this provision. Next, 26. Formation of industrial tribunal, I find it will delay the litigation, definitely. Now, 2 members, 3 members, it is not the experience in other tribunals, like government tribunals, is not very satisfactory. In any other tribunal where it is more than 1 person, the vacancy is crippling the litigation on that. Therefore, this formation of tribunals does not serve any purpose. Next, 27. This continued restrictions on the management under section 40 and 90, which is S12, 9A and 33, it's time it is have a relook on that. That in respect of scheduled matters, the scope for giving 21 days notice, then going for a conciliation, and then going for a litigation, in the present day, it cannot be carried out at all. The business has to change very drastically on a scenario, but 9A restricts. Similarly, present 90, which is equal to 33, when the dispute resolution is quick, why should there be an approval and permission under section 90, which is a trial run? Supreme Court has said it should be a prima facie case. Now, the complaint is this section 90, which is S12 33, is being done by certain conciliation officers. Their way of dealing with these approval applications or permission applications is highly unsatisfactory. Next one. Then the labor code or tribunal has become a complete code, and civil code jurisdiction is also ousted. That the labor forum, whatever name it is called, should have been given a power to grant injunction. This has been completely missed. It's high time. Otherwise, what happens is there is a 2 type of litigation. One before the industrial forum, another before the High Court. So whenever the federal bank case, Supreme Court said, if there is a violation of mandatory provisions of various enactments, including industrial law, a writ is maintainable against a private company. A writ is filed in the High Court either by workman or management in respect of certain matters, when simultaneously an industrial dispute is pending. So it is high time the industrial tribunal itself is given that power. And the advantage of it, the local issues can be resolved in the local courts itself, instead of having a local resolution by conciliation and dispute and an injunction before the High Court. So it is high time the tribunal is vested with these powers. Next. Except PF appeals and ESA cases, the failure to include various other claims under various enactments under the jurisdiction of the tribunal is another shortcoming. In my experience, I can say without any hesitation, I'm not hurting any officers of the Labor Department, that all litigation matters should go to the tribunal or labor court, whatever it is. All litigation matters by of a quasi-judicial adjudication before the bureaucrats is a failure in our country. Either you take labor enactments or any other enactments. Why should there be a first round of litigation before a quasi-judicial authorities, then come to an appellate court by of a second round? Let's deal with it once and even let them pass an order, whatever they want, but let it be adjudicated before the court. For example, gratuity. Why should it be before the authority? Let it come to the tribunal. PF, again tribunal. Why by an appeal? Straight away against the PF, ESA, everything we can have. Employee compensation. Why an adjudication before the authority, then a high court? Everything can be done by the tribunal. As everyone know who is practicing in labor laws, either as a lawyer or HR professionals, the litigation in the adjudication tribunals have come down drastically. There is not much work at all. Why therefore have two forums for a labor litigation? It should come before one forum. Next. Now this code has repealed Trade Union Act, IDA Act, and also Employment Standing Orders Act. Now let's move to the next one. I am running short of time. Code on wages. Yes. Next one. This contract labor has been made very clear. Now, there is no question of contract labor and interstate migrant workmen. Two enactments is all brought under one enactment, and all interstate migrant workmen will be deemed to be contract workmen. Therefore, we have seen the scenario of interstate migrant workmen not getting various benefits. The days are all over. They will be treated as contract workmen. Next. 2. The government has been given power to fix the salary limit in respect of definition. So it need not be a legislative act which takes place once in 20 years. The government can swiftly amend it or increase the wages based on the present wage structure. Next. 3. Wages, I need not repeat it. Like earlier case here, earlier code here also, it is 50-50. Next. 4. As I said earlier, now this has been clarified. What is meant by same work or work of similar nature? In respect of skill, effort, experience or same, it will amount to same work. Same. Therefore, actually the principle of equal work for equal pay has been incorporated in labor legislation, which is S12 only in service legislation. Next. 5. Here there is no discrimination as in gender as done earlier. Here also, once again, on the question of wages, there cannot be a discrimination where the nature of work is same or similar. So it puts an end to this clerical cadre getting different wages, though they do the same work, because we have a right to have a contract. So those days are all over, and it will be on a principle of equal pay for equal work. Next. 6. If there is a controversy on that, the authority will decide it. Whether there is actually work of same or similar nature. Yes. Next. 7. Now we'll go into minimum wages. This floor level wages has been now, you know, it's running by the central government notification time to time. Then now here it has been said there will be a floor level wages based on minimum living conditions for worker in respect of different geographical areas. This is important because earlier it used to be an all India basis. Now it can be based on a minimum living standard based on geographical area. Next. While fixing a floor level wages, it should include at least food, clothing, housing, etc. These are which is the requirement. Next one. Let's deal with minimum wages. Now, minimum wages should be fixed based on skill, geographical area which is already then, arduous nature of work, etc. Then the minimum wages should not be less than the floor level wages, which is so obvious. Next, 10. Now, while fixing minimum rate of wages, it is high time to fix the working hours also. Because we find, for example, in security guards, the minimum wage is fixed, but they are not working hours. It runs to even 12 hours, etc. Now, therefore, while fixing minimum wages, the working hours also fixed as a normal working hours. Next, 11. Now, fixation of minimum wages, it was always felt it is outdated. The basket which is taken is not in the present trend. Now they have repaired it. They said 1,002 children, intake of 2,700 calories, 66 meters of cloth, house rent expenditure of 10% of the food and clothing expenditure. Next, fuel, electricity. Next one, fuel and electricity. Next one, 11 layer, next second part. Fuel, electricity and miscellaneous items. Then children education, medical expenses, recreation, 25%, 20%, etc. These are criteria laid down in Raptagas-Brett case by the Supreme Court. Now it has been, after nearly 30 years, it has been given effect to. Now let us come to bonus. 12, please 12. Now the disqualification is included, one more thing, conviction on sexual harassment. Next. Then one more disqualification is if you cause loss to the management, to the extent your bonus for the accounting year can be reduced. Next, 14. Fixation of bonus. If there is a dispute, it is 8.3 or 20%, what are the criteria to be set off, set on, etc. It can be treated as an industrial dispute. Next, 15. Now, the claims regarding minimum wages, payment of wages, including fines, deductions, bonus, work of similar nature, etc., can be decided by an authority concerned on the said controversy. Next, 16. There is an appellate authority for that. We will deal with this. Next. Now, authority, inspector cum facilitator has been appointed, who will advise the employed workman on the compliance of various provisions of the code, and they also exercise such powers. So there is a person who will ensure the compliance of the act. Next, my observations. As I said earlier, the authorities for compliance of various provisions of this act, or we will deal with it, should be taken away, and it should be given to the industrial tribunals. Next, these acts which are repealed, I given the list. Next. Yes, these are the enactments which have been repealed. Now I'll come to the Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Act. Now the important amendment here. Now it will be mixed of amendment and new one. Person who is working in connection with the work of an establishment, though he is hired through a contractor, including interstate migrant workman, will be a contract workman. This is sum and substance of. Next, contractor. Here, now if you find, not only a mere supply of labor, even persons who do a job related work is also brought under the definition of contractor, who undertakes to produce a given result in establishment. Also is a contract which hitherto was held to be not a contract. That is, service providers are held to be not contractors. Now, the scope of expansion of contractor has been widened, and more people have to be brought under the definition of contractor. That means license registration. Next. Occupier. Now, an independent director cannot be nominated as an occupier, unlike the earlier situation. Next, 4. Now, apart from the accident, which is temporary disablement or permanent disablement, another type of injury has been notified. Serious bodily injury means involving permanent loss of any part of the body, including permanent loss of sight, etc. This is notified as a serious bodily injury. Now, next one. The importance is next to 2 provisions. The employee who apprehends that he is likely to suffer serious bodily injury, death or imminent danger of health, he may bring it to the notice of the employer directly or through a member of the safety committee and also to the inspector of labor. So therefore, now the employer will have a say. He will not be a mute person against his exposure to danger of bodily injury. He can write to the management, he can inform the safety committee, or he can go to the inspector straight away. So there will be more of a compliance in respect of safety aspects at the instance of the individual workman itself. Next. The duties of the employer when the bodily injury takes place is mentioned. He should report to the authority and also next kin of the workman. He should also provide residential accommodation and medical facility to such a workman. Next, 7. Now, it is become mandatory that the employer should give appointment order to every employee appointed by him. Next, 8. Now, the first time under labor legislation, duties of the employees have been fixed that he should take care of his health, safety, and other persons, comply with safety and health requirement, cooperate with the employer in meeting statutory obligations, report any unsafe, unhealthy situation, and not willfully misuse or neglect safety appliances, and also not willfully endanger himself. So certain responsibility has been thrust on the employee so that the employer is not made to face a risk on that. Next, 14. Now, every employee has got a right to obtain information from the employer regarding his health and safety conditions. He can also represent to the inspector on this. He is not satisfied with the employer on his reply. Next. In respect of hazardous process work, the employee is likely to complain to the inspector on this, and he has got a direct access to government. Next. 11. Hours of work. Now, this is a good flexibility. We need not go by the provision because hardly amendment takes place. Now, the appropriate government can increase the hours of work or reduce the work. Such a leverage is given to the government. Next. Overtime. Now, you can get overtime only with the peer written consent of the employee. Now, therefore, any number of overtime hours, etc., days are all gone. It should be with his consent. Next, leave wages. Earlier, it was 240 days criteria. Now, it has been, 180 days is enough to get the earned leave instead of 240 days of earlier period. Next, in respect of women workers, slight modification has been done. She can work from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. with her consent. And if there is any conditions imposed on by the government in respect of safety, holidays, and working conditions, that should be filled up. Next, further in respect of women workmen, it is prohibited where it is dangerous for her health and safety. So prima facie you can do it, but subject to the government prohibition on this. Next, 47. Now, getting license vaguely saying help, outsourcing or loading, unloading, or sweeping and scavenging, or those vague reasons, and misusing that for various other allied purposes over. Now they said it should be very specific. Work specific license alone will be granted. So the conditions are becoming stringent in respect of employment of contract labor. Next. Next is very relevant. If you don't take a license or the license is lapsed, then if you continue to employ these persons will be deemed to be employees of the principal employer, which is a radical change in the present Contract Labor Regulation Abolition Act. Next. Now, my observation is this provision by which a contract labor by default becomes an employee of the company is very, very critical and crucial. And this goes against this trend of Supreme Court judgments, which they said by default you cannot become an employee of the company. And it is well settled by Constitution bench in sale case. But legislature thinks otherwise. It says in the absence of license, you become a workman of the company. Next. The acts which are repealed, I have narrated it. Factories Act, Mines Act, Dock Workers Act. Totally 13 enactments have been repealed and brought under this code. Now I'll move to the code on security. Social security. Yes, come to the first slide. Employment injury. Even if an accident takes place or a disease occurs outside India, this will be treated as an employment injury. This is the expansion of employment injury now. Next. Now the controversy as to when the accident took place, whether it is in the course of employment or these discussions are over. Now, unless there is an evidence to the contrary, every accident is deemed to have taken place during the course of employment. Now, the two important definitions are brought under the social security. So, more class of workmen are brought under social welfare benefits. Class 3, slide 3, what is called as a gig worker. A gig worker is a person whose work arrangement takes place and he earns his wages outside the traditional employer-employee relation. Obviously, there are so many online working which has taken place, but there are no social security at all. So very many professional freelancers who do a lot of work may not be in real industry, but in service sector, where back office, etc., etc. These persons are now entitled for various social security benefits. Next, this platform work. This gig worker can also include various freelancers like Sugi, online car operators, drivers, etc. Platform workers is usually online platform who do a lot of online work for us as a self-employed persons. Then what is a platform worker is also informed. Next. Platform worker is a person who does platform work. Now ESI, next one, 6. These gig workers and platform workers have come into the ESI contribution. Now the question will be how to make the contribution. Whatever you pay to them is treated as wages and the contribution is made. So it's a good thing many unorganized workers come under the ESI Act. Similarly, the next one, 7.1, Social Security Fund, which is nothing but another one for PF, where the platform workers and gig workers are brought under the fund, and which will be given by state government, employers, corporate social responsibility fund, etc. So the separate fund will be created for their welfare. Let us see how it works. Then there is a social security scheme, number 8. The fund is there. Now there is a scheme on that. The government will formulate it and for the benefit of disablement, maternity and old age benefits to these two type of workforce. Number 9, ESA contribution. So, see, this is a very serious provision. It's a very serious provision, starting where you don't make the contribution. The law present day is that you should pay it along with interest and damages. Nothing more than that. The government corporation will recover from it. But now they say, if you fail to make a contribution and still the employee is entitled for it, because under the ESI Act and present code also, it is payable. If they give various benefits to the employee, not only they will deduct the contribution from you, claim the contribution from you by an order, they will also realize the money after giving you opportunity, the capitalized value of the benefits. I searched in the Google to find out what is this expression capitalized value. I find it is mostly in commercial law where a property has got a rental value on its investment. But I don't know how they incorporate that expression, commercial law expression here as a capitalized value and claiming benefits. It is nothing but whatever the ESA contribution paid towards an employee by of rupees 5 they spent on it, they will recover it from it. Next. Similarly, if the ESA corporation has to incur more expenditure on the sickness of insured persons because of the insanitary working conditions, this is important, or neglect of health regulations by the company, the corporation can make a claim from you for that extra expenditure after giving due opportunity, no doubt. So now under the ESA Act, you have to face two other litigation apart from payment of contribution, interest and damages. Next, gratuity. Now the importance of gratuity is in respect of contract period, fixed term contract, you need not wait for 5 years to get gratuity from here. Even if you were 1 year, is entitled for gratuity. Next, the limitation period for claiming demand of ESA, it's already know it's 5 years. Now they incorporated for PF also. Therefore, there is an outer limit for demand from the corporations on ESA and PF. Next, PF appeal before the tribunal. What is the importance is slide 13. Instead of 75% deposit, it is enough if you deposit 25% or an admitted amount, whichever is higher. So a lot of leverage for employer while filing an appeal. The strenuous 75% deposit is not there. Now the observations which I again make is, what is the purpose of the ESA corporation? Next one. 14. Claiming capitalized value from the employer. I think this will be really challenged, should be challenged rather. Once you get the contribution, either in time or belated time, then there is no question of further claim from me. Similarly, this extra expenditure for insanitary conditions is really harsh and it will be very subjective. This is a very harsh section. Let us see how it is working. Now let me complete what are the acts which have been repealed. Yes, ending. About 9 enactments have been repealed. End of it. End. Yes, end. 7, 8, 9. You can go to the next slide also. So 9 enactments. So totally 29 enactments are brought under 4 codes and they brought within 470 provisions. So 470 provisions, 4 codes replacing 29 enactments. Now, having said all these issues, I'll quickly highlight for your memory, what is this 4 codes are set. Now under IR code, I'm not criticizing or supporting or objecting it. I'm just keeping it on record. Fixed term employment is a new issue. Then strikes and lockouts, new meaning has been given. Definition of wages has radically changed. Recognition of trade union has been made compulsory. The reference by the government is taken away. Direct access to courts have come across. Civil court jurisdiction is ousted. Next. Interim relief to workmen during the pendency of the dispute has been given a valuable right. The continued compulsion to take permission is still in existence. Division bench tribunals have been formed. There is lack of power of injunction in the hands of the industrial tribunals is the impact of a IR code. If you see code of wages, now interstate migrant workmen has been merged into contract workers. The same or similar work concept has been brought in labor legislation. Now minimum wages has been radically changed. The fixation component is in terms of the Supreme Court judgment. Yes. Next is occupational safety and health. Now duties of the employees have been brought into force. Working hours have been left to the government's prerogative. Overtime work only with the consent of the workman, and the absence of control license becomes fatal as far as the employer is concerned. No, absence of contract license. I'm sorry, absence of contract license becomes fatal. Now, as far as the social security is concerned, yes. Next, as far as the social security is concerned, new type of employees. We don't even call them as employees hitherto. Now, gig workers and platform workers have been brought under social security, ESA, PF, and a new social security scheme for them. Then capitalization value and collection of fines from the employer for insanitary working conditions. Then extra expenditure during sickness caused to the insanitary working conditions. Then gratuity need not be restricted for a minimum period of 5 years. It can be even for 1 year. Then PF tribunals, PF department's claim has been restricted to 5 years. These are the 22 highlights. But the important lacuna or harassment or the change which is necessary is that the quasi-judicial powers which vested with these authorities. It is high time these quasi-judicial powers are taken from authorities, and once and for all we have tribunals jurisdiction on all matters like permission, approval, gratuity, employee compensation, everything should be come to the tribunal. So in a nutshell, in 1 hour and 10 minutes, what I am able to say is these are the changes or new provisions in the 4 codes, and 22 issues or highlights which I am placing it positively or which has not taken place, which has taken place or which has not taken place. This is the crux of the 4 codes for your presentation. Thank you so much. Administrator can close the slides and I can come on screen.